about 11 minutes late.
It's not quite there yet. Okay, there you go.
Hello, good evening. We're starting about 11 minutes late. Sorry, technical difficulties, resetting passwords, all that good stuff. So I want to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we'll start with introductions. Mary Romanich, would you be willing to do that?
I will be willing. I'm Mary Romanich, parent rep 2.
Tori McCarthy, parent rep 1.
Kathleen Luttrell, Vice President, Board of Trustees, MMCI.
Kevin Cusswetter, friend of Ed.
Amy Dorman, principal.
Ellie Landrew, parent rep and GC chair.
Regina Chadwick, parent rep and secretary.
Monica Talley, staff rep.
Amanda Benton, staff rep.
Janet Robertson, friend of Ed.
All right, great. So we'll move on to approving tonight's agenda. So I motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented. Can I get a second?
Second.
Great, there. Thank you, Mary. There was something that I wanted to change on the agenda, which I forgot that we kind of discussed at our last meeting, which was moving community comments to 7 p.m. sharp, so that members of the community that have comments have an opportunity to kind of get here now that we have an earlier start to our meetings. And that way people feel like they have an opportunity to know when they really, really want to be here. So I just want to change that time there for community comments to 7 p.m. We'll say 7 p.m. to 7:05, unless more time is warranted, of course. Does anybody else have anything that they need to add or revise or have questions about the agenda?
I emailed you asking you to add the fundraising / volunteer guidelines that Tara sent, and then I sent them to everybody.
I'm sorry, I
For
forgot to do
for
that.
discussion. She
Okay.
said it doesn't need a vote, she just wants some people.
Okay, great. So we'll add that to new business.
Yep.
We'll add that as C for new business.
They had also mentioned at the last meeting that people that are here from those committees, I don't know, maybe this was just me, that they could speak at the beginning and then they could go home. Is that something that we?
You mean the committee reports? Yeah, so usually that happens within the
Okay.
first short period of time. We
Okay.
usually move through those pretty quickly.
Okay.
Does everybody else agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All
I
right.
think last time it was just different, since there was a vote involved and it was like, like something was thrown in the middle and. Yeah,
Right.
that, it happens occasionally.
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right, thank you. Motion to approve the agenda as amended. Can I get a second? Mary, thank you. All right, all in favor? Great, thank you. Actually, I don't think I can amend my own agenda if I can amend a motion if I'm the motioner without needing to get, without needing to do a second motion.
I believe you.
Yeah. No, I'm just pointing it out. That's all.
It's just how we've always done it,
No worries.
continuity.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to principal report.
I just have a couple of quick things to share out. We had brought up the idea of using Naviance for the middle school students so that they could transition over to high school. And after we dug into it a little bit more, actually Cindy Green looked into it and she talked with some people in the district that she knows and then some people over at CCM. And it turns out that the rest of the schools aren't really using it with Fidelity, so we are going to take a pass. We decided after we were approved, based on the information that Cindy found out and that was shared, and then also discussing it with Mark, that we're going to take a pass until the rest of the county is actually using it with more Fidelity, and that our students have transitioned to high school just fine thus far without it. The next thing that I wanted to share is that the first parent workshop was held last week and was really well received. All of the feedback from the evaluation that we requested was positive, and there was a request to hold more. Thankfully, we are holding more. And coming up for this month in conjunction with American Education Week is the opportunity for parents to be the guests of their children while they are at school. Obviously, we can't open that up to every single person, so Monica Talley made a sign up genius, and there are a certain number of spots that are open at each level for each class. Those dates are
19, 20, 21.
American Education Week is the 18th through the 22nd. The visitation days, along with an introduction to the Montessori plans of development, will be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week. So that sign up genius is up and running. It's ready to go. I shared the flyer with the communications committee this evening, so this should go out. It should be in everybody's inbox probably by the time we get home. Okay, so and I'll hang this on the community bulletin board. Monica Talley also created a community bulletin board for us. You'll notice it when you come in the main entrance. It's up on the left. If you have anything that is of value to the community that you would like to share, please check with either Monica or myself, and we'll see that it gets added. We have a threat assessment training coming up November 20th, and this is a new team, so we have a new resource officer. His name is Officer Buntley. He will be joining us. The school psychologist, Erin Denny, will be joining us. And we needed a full-time staff member. Sandy Bostic did agree to be that person, and then myself. So we'll go to that training on November 20th. And finally, the last thing I wanted to share is we are really working on the fine-tuning of the Montessori Compass report cards. I am personally really excited about them. I think that it's just so nicely aligned to the work that we do as Montessorians. The middle school report cards will stay the same. And I do want to, maybe at this point, if we can, turn it over to Amanda. She has been kind of spearheading this. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Or no?
well, we're gonna do the secretary e-vote report, and then we will go to the staff
All
rep
right,
report.
well then we're that's it. That's all I have to say.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. I am gonna pass on anything at this time, in the interest of time. No.
The e-vote report is on October 11th. Regina made the motion to approve the October 2019 meeting minutes. And that passed with 7 in favor and 2 non-votes on October 13th. And on October 20th, Kathleen Luttrell made the motion to accept the repair estimate from Premier Fire Protection Services LLC for repair and replacement of the items listed in the proposal in the amount of $1,375. The annual inspection is also attached. It will be in the minutes. The funds will be pulled from class 11 account 72055 contracted maintenance and repairs, and that passed with 5 in favor and 4 non-votes on October 22nd. That's it.
Great. Staff reps?
I'm gonna go first. So I have been working with Amy on developing a new report card that coincides with our Montessori Compass that we use for planning and recording of students' lessons. So I have a copy of it. I'm gonna pass it around to the board so you guys can look at it here. There is a place on here that is a statement of progress. Attendance is on here, and then it goes through the academic report and gives a little bit more detailed information about the lessons that the children are receiving. And that's kind of it. So I'll pass it around. You guys can take a look. Comment on it if you like. Sure. It has a splendid student on there. Her name is Amanda Bowden. And she's doing very well.
You're doing a lot of work.
I know.
That's really nice.
That is really nice. I also really like that we are utilizing Compass in a different capacity, which is great.
one little thing that might be a little bit confusing the first time coming out is that the specialists, the art specialist, the music specialist, and the PE specialist are also using Montessori Compass, which they have been pleasantly, they love using it. They think that it has helped them greatly. So they have a different key than the Montessorians do. They base theirs off of percentage of participation, where ours is based off of if they've been introduced to a lesson, they're working on it with help, they're working on it independently, or they're proficient. So at the top, there is a key that differentiates those two. Yep. And that would be the only confusing part, I think, I hope.
That's great.
I guess while that's going around, I can give mine.
Sounds good.
Mine's quick. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of all staff for, to everyone in the community who brought things for conferences. Teachers were very delighted to receive meals on those days, and it's always a really nice thing to be able to provide, because the days do get long, even though we come in late, it's still a long day. So thank you if you brought food in for the teachers. It did not go unnoticed. So conferences, I think from what I understand, were a success all the way around. And I think it was something that was really beneficial and something that I always personally enjoy, especially when I get to know new families and also when I get to see families of siblings who I've taught for. So that's fun. And field trips are in full swing. Lower L went to the Smithsonian last week. We have other field trips at other levels. Middle school is going to Urbana this week to get a early screening of their play that is going to be, I think, this weekend. And that's all.
Great.
So far, so good.
All right, we'll move on to the BOT VP report. Kathleen?
I got it together enough to actually submit a written report this month.
Yes. Do you have anything to add to your
So
report?
I really don't have anything earth-shaking to add to it at this point. So
Okay.
let's move along.
All right, great. I guess we'll move on to the strategic plan. And I'm sorry I left your name on there, Monica,
Oh, no, nice.
but it's a group effort anyway, right?
Thank you for picking this up.
No worries. So looking at the strategic plan, I printed off sections 1C and 1D for everyone to review. I have an extra copy if there's anyone who is present behind the camera that would like to see. This end, here's the second copy. So section 1D.1, the action plan is that we should be developing and implementing a school-wide mindfulness program that is aligned across grade levels. And the success measures for that would be students engaging in teacher-led, research-supported mindfulness activities, less frequent incidents of students in crisis / use of the crisis team, and reduced reported anxiety and conflict for students. So I guess the question is like, where are we at with doing that, and are we meeting those measures?
So I think this was something that was started, this initiative, I don't know, Amanda, 2 years ago maybe?
That was my first year here, so
Okay.
mine did before my time, but I don't really remember talking about this.
We did the
Right.
training in your room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember that first year?
Yes, we had a consultant,
Oh,
right?
yes, okay, I do remember that now, yes, she was wonderful.
Right,
I remember her.
right. And this year, didn't some members of staff go to a mindfulness workshop?
I went to some went to restorative practices workshop. This is something I can actually take a lead on because
Great.
this is, I implemented this over at another school.
Hmm.
And I can actually, I can lead some PD on this. But I would really
Yeah,
like to
so
see
the
this in
PD person that
classrooms.
came and did a 1 day or half a day training.
it was when we still had that, everyone has to report day in October, which I don't think we have anymore, but we had like a day that you couldn't work from home.
And then
Oh, Craig, I forgot you were here too.
And she gave us.
And a lot of you can speak to this, I'm sorry.
She gave us some resources to use and change, so.
And I just realized I jumped ahead, guys, instead of starting at 1C, so I'm sorry.
That's okay, we're
We
just
picked
on
up on
that
Okay.
one.
So we'll continue forward on the sheet that we started with. So then 1.D.2 is create and implement a comprehensive wellness initiative that's focused on mental health as an ongoing thing. And the success measures were, less frequent incidents of students in crisis / use of the crisis team, increase in students who report well-being, who report being self-aware and exhibit appropriate emotional regulation.
And that was Cindy Green coming into our classrooms and giving lessons, which she did do all of last year.
Cindy, do you have anything you want to speak to that on, since you're here?
I'm happy to answer any questions. I did last year go in and give lessons in the classroom. I did do restorative practices this year. I'm hoping to be able to share some of that information because it was a great training. It was really good.
Great. Do you want to share at the next meeting, perhaps?
About restorative practice.
Yeah,
I'm happy to if you like.
yeah, okay. That'd be great. So, action item for Cindy and I.
Cindy, that's a new blanket too from last time.
It is. This one
I'm
has to be done by
impressed. I'm
Christmas.
impressed. I
Yeah.
really-
So for me to add
I'm
it to
so
the agenda.
impressed.
Thank you.
Right, okay. Do you want to report back on that? Okay,
Sure.
so action item for Amy, that she's gonna do a temperature check, that we are meeting those measures. Mm-hmm,
I guess we would have records that we could check that against, right? In terms of,
I would think in terms of the crisis team,
Yeah.
would be able to.
right.
That's what Amanda and I were kind of, and also, there is an element of this in our health and wellness goal for fiscal improvement
Mhm.
plan, so it has it's sort of a growth of like other wellness, and that was kind of what we were thinking is that would be a catch-all for the mindfulness stuff that
Right. So what Monica, I'm sorry, I think you were talking quietly. So what Monica was saying is that that's also incorporated in the school improvement plan as well that's being worked on. And I neglected to read fully because this is truncated, so I'm sorry. So the whole action plan is create and implement a comprehensive wellness initiative that is focused on mental health and emotional intelligence, including growth mindset, should be complement and support a mindfulness program. So I would also like to say that part of that, like the emotional intelligence piece, like the whole peace curriculum that we do through Montessori incorporates that too, very beautifully. With the peace rose, which I tend to do at home with my girls sometimes. All right, so moving on to 1.C.1. Actually, it's 7:00. There are no community comments at this time. No one signed up for community comments.
We have an email. from
Oh.
comments.
You want to read that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this was from Alicia Maldonado. She wanted to share that she is starting a new initiative at MBM called Community Coats with the help of Miss Amy and Ellie. Each classroom will have spare winter items such as coats, hats, gloves, scarves, earmuffs, etc. Students can borrow them while at school in the event they don't have any. Teachers were given a sheet to fill out how many of each item and what sizes they needed. Some items were collected at the swap. The remaining items I will look to get donated, starting with the MBM community first.
Great. Thank you. All right, so moving on to the strategic plan, 1.C.1, develop a program to provide students with leadership opportunities during the school day. And so the success measures for that are students gaining confidence and exemplifying leadership characteristics measured by quantity, frequency, and variety of students taking part in opportunities. And then various leadership positions are created and filled at each level. Which makes me think about, one thing that comes to mind for me is I've noticed, like at dismissal, there are students in the hallway that are helping children navigate the younger students out to Carline or the awning, which I think is a really great opportunity for leadership. Does anybody else have any other?
What about a student rep on the GC?
Yeah, we could
I
certainly,
mean, like a middle school or something. Didn't they do that?
Had them in the past.
We've had them in the past.
It depends on the
If there's
students
interest, I
and-
mean,
yeah.
you know, or even, something as opposed to like a student government. I know some classes have done that.
Certainly, it'd be good on
GC
the
rep.
committees too. It'd be great to have a student on like a fundraising.
In
committee.
as much as they can
Yeah.
get themselves there. at 8
Yeah,
o'clock.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
All that good stuff.
right,
Might have to-
We go past our bedtime.
we
But
go past
something
my
like that.
bedtime.
I was gonna say, they're not.
Actually, no, they say they do pretty good. Middle schoolers do all their own. But yeah, you're right. I don't know, just if there were ever an interest in the, particularly with, I guess, the older kids, I don't mean to disqualify younger ones, but particularly as they get older and start going into high school and looking into student government options.
Right,
they
well,
like that.
also like the awareness of like how organizations work, I feel like these meetings are such a great opportunity to see that and learn about Robert's rules.
Or even if it were rolling positions, I would hate for only one child to have that opportunity on
Mhm.
here.
Right,
You know, that's what I don't want one person to get all that, you know, or
Right.
more, something like that worked out. I don't know if they're interested.
Monica, would you be willing to like reach out to middle school staff and see if they can talk to the students about it? And what do you think of that? Yeah? And see if like they can do like a rolling. I don't know, I
So, I think the first
imagine,
come, first served rule in the school, I mean, something. know
No, I
you have
mean
to sometimes.
rolling.
Right, that's what I'm, so
Right.
for that reason, it'd be nice to have a
right,
rolling option.
that way everyone has an opportunity, but I almost think like, without adding to your plate, I almost think it'd be cool to like, maybe there could be like a lesson about like Robert's rules or, you know, like,
Purity all over that.
yeah, right? You just signed Miss
You
Pierre out.
already did.
That's okay.
So if you don't mind reaching out to Miss Pierre and seeing if she would be open to possibly doing something like that, and yeah. Unless you want to do it, Amy. I just realized I kind of just circumvented you and I did not mean to do that. Is that okay?
It's all good.
All right, awesome. Okay, 1.C.2, incorporate student advocacy discussions at school so that students can give input regarding MVM-PCS concerns. So that is, and the success measure is students exercising the right to share concerns about community with the GC. I would say, I feel like during my term on the GC, I've had students come and speak at community comments. But I think that Mary's idea would really help incorporate that even further, because then they would have a pulse on what the adults are trying to decide for them.
And if there is no interest, I'm not saying there won't be, but in the
Right.
event that there is no interest among the students, we could certainly reach out to have the teachers maybe, hey, if there's any, bring your issues to the GC. We
Right.
can reach out to them through the teachers.
Right. Maybe it could even be part of that curriculum, perhaps.
Outlets,
Yeah.
resources.
Mm-hmm. No worries. All right, so moving on. Does anybody, I'm sorry, before we move on, anybody have anything else they want to add or? No? Okay, great. So moving on, fundraising committee. So there was, where's that email? Oh, that Alicia sent.
one?
Is her whole email in there? No, the other one where she had her community comment.
Well, so they were together. This was at the bottom of this.
Right.
It was this, then this.
So I wanted so I had talked to Alicia. So I had talked to Alicia. Right, no, it's something different that I have to say. I
Sorry.
wanted to look at it because it
Okay.
pings my brain.
Okay.
It's a visual cue for me. So one of the things that I talked to Alicia about earlier today, and which was, you know, she is working on this film club fundraiser, and I think one concern that she kind of had was that if she's doing it for one club or committee, club after school activity, that maybe she would, as fundraising chair, need to extend that offer out to any other after school clubs or activities for fundraisers. And so, and that it would be like inequitable. But she also shared concerns that if she were to do that, then that would be it's a larger burden for her that she wouldn't necessarily want to do. So I told her that I would talk to the GC and kind of get their feeling on whether or not, as fundraising chair, she should be offering that service to all after-school activities, or if she can pick and choose the pet projects that she wants to work on. And then if other parents want to do that for other after-school activities, that she would help support them in their efforts to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just needed to clarify, what service are we talking about?
So she's doing the film club
Right, she's
Fundraiser.
organizing that.
to help subsidize the film
Right.
club to make it less of a burden on families to pay
Sure.
for it. And so one concern she had was that if she's doing that as fundraising chair, if she's doing that, that's why she's doing it personally, on a personal note, rather than as her official capacity as fundraising chair, because she's worried that if she did it as under the hat of fundraising chair, then she would have to be extending that to every after-school activity and do a fundraiser for every after-school activity to subsidize it.
The way she's doing it seems right. I don't know if she feels.
Yeah, if she's doing this personally, I think that's great. And every other club has the option to do the same thing or find that.
And it may actually help draw in parents to be, because I feel like if we do it, or if she does it for everybody, then it just is one more excuse for people to maybe not be as involved as they could be.
Right.
And so if she's kind of spearheading this club, then maybe the next club will get spearheaded by someone else.
Right.
And also, I mean, she's personally interested in this club because her kids are in there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Mhm.
Can I bring up one, I forget who sent me this email, that somebody had asked some details about the contract with Root Branch. So I went back and I reread it. And the question was, does the contract extend to the end of the year? It might have been from Olivia. So that, are they covered by the contract in order to do this fundraising activity? And I think the answer is no. There were no actual dates in the contract, but what it specified was a 7-week session, which ends, I believe, next week. So we may need to do something through the BOT to kind of give it a nod of,
Okay.
legitimacy.
So do you mind spearheading that over to the
I can
BOT?
take care of that.
Okay.
My other question is, and I'm sure the answer is yes to this, is Miss Vanya willing to supervise the kids for the extra week or two it's gonna take to produce these videos? So, I'm sure she is, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about this.
Right.
But I just wanted to ask the question.
So do you want an action item then?
Yeah, give me an action item.
Okay.
I need stuff to do.
So Kathleen needs to go and get the BOT blessing to extend the contract.
The contract with Root Branch
Mhm.
Productions.
And then also what I would really like is for the GC to like have an opinion to share with Alicia on whether or not she should, as fundraising chair, be doing that for all clubs, or if she should just be supporting.
No,
I don't think she
She's
should
not
be,
doing
she's
it as
not doing it
fundraising
as
chair.
fundraising chair, and she should.
She's doing
Right.
it as an interested parent
Yeah.
who's
Okay.
involved in that.
It would be like any one of us
So-
doing something else extra to the board, where if you, they're separate identities and entities, so.
Okay, so my action item will be then to go back to Alicia and let her know what the GC opinion was on the matter. I feel like my own personal opinion is like, I don't feel like I wanna voluntold people to do things that are not like part of their passion.
Yeah, she got enough to do with this.
So what if Root Branch didn't come back? This money is our money? Or, I'm just curious,
I mean, the money that's raised.
that's being raised and going back to if Ms. who? Vanya? If she's willing to put in extra time, are we paying her out of this? Sorry.
I
Now-
think
now I'm
that's-
thinking.
Yeah, I think your brain's working on it, so we'll get down there at the
Okay.
bottom, but the short answer is, I think Alicia's expectation is that it would come in to MVM
Okay.
and that there would be like a line item where they would keep track of the money that they have.
I would imagine you'd put it in the student activities fund with a restriction on it to be used for scholarships for the film club.
Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. We're making notes all three.
Yes,
I
I'm
think,
sorry.
I think it was good. I appreciate that she raised that concern because in a case like this, if you have a film club wanting to film something, it's pretty straightforward. It's not like anyone else would have had that opportunity and someone who's on the inside gets in. You know, it's not like you've gone around and collected donations from everybody in town for your club and now everyone's given out, you know, it's.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's a good question to ask anytime somebody sees a potential conflict. It was good, and in this case, I think it's film clubs wants to film something, that's perfect. But if there is maybe at another point when resources could be not so, you know, exclusively sort of predetermined, it would be good to revisit every time. But in this case, I agree with everybody. That was a good question to ask.
Great. Anything else? Can we move on? All right. Does anybody have anything that they want to discuss from the committee reports that were received? Okay, all right. I'm not gonna go through, I'll go through and read them all. So, community outreach, hospitality, community coffee, blessings in a backpack, welcoming committee, volunteer committee, library committee, hiring committee. Oh, I did want to say, didn't last year we get from the hiring committee, like what their strategic plan for hiring was going to look like for next
What
year
about
and the year?
No, but that was the thing I thought we got in January because you requested it. Or am I thinking of something?
No, it was beyond just like, it wasn't a year-to-year thing, I think
It was like the.
It was a
3
year
it was a
and 3 year and 5 year.
Yeah, but that was, you requested them.
Okay, I thought it was gonna be a year-to-year thing. So I guess maybe then what we'll do is an action item for me to reach out to the hiring committee and find out if they have any opinions that they wanna share with us. Cause now's the time to share any opinions,
If you have opinions about
hiring,
that.
staffing,
Just in general.
yeah. Any needs they see on the
For
horizon,
future.
yeah, for the
Okay,
future.
well, just to say opinions is for the action item, it's hard for me
Right.
to follow up on.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Although you're never short of opinions, you're always-
I'm just anticipating, but I'm. Sorry, I'm trying to be careful what I say, but I mean, if we know that we have some serious budgetary constraints, they're probably gonna be asking,
Mhm.
like, are we talking if we somehow like,
What changes
someone
we
gives
have
us
to
$1
make.
million, like, you know, I
Right.
don't like, in what context would you like the information, Ellie? Does that-
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, that's a great question, and maybe I need to ruminate on that before I send the email to hiring committee. Or if everybody could ruminate on it and then think about like how we need to frame that, but I wanted to make sure that like year to year, this is the time of year for them to have a voice to the GC directly from a time frame perspective. Because getting this opinion from them, we have to be forward thinking and not reactionary thinking. And so if we're thinking about staffing levels for next year, now's the time to think about it because of the calendar, FCPS's calendar of how things are done. So I guess that's where that's coming from for me. And I'd like for that to be, something that's on the radar of the GC this time next year and the year after and the year after, so that we are more proactive about thinking about those kinds of things.
So maybe it's maybe it is an appropriate question then, because I don't think anything like that is in the hiring committee SOP, although it's been a few months since I read it. So maybe what the question really is this something that we want to incorporate? Like, does the GC want to ask every year at the same time for the hiring committee to have a similar type of discussion?
Right, so I thought Marie did put it in the SOP.
Okay, I could be wrong because it's been.
Right, so since you're on the
Yeah,
hiring committee,
yeah, I can-
do you mind if I ask you to like go and see if
What's
that's on there?
I can
Right,
probably look it up, but yeah.
awesome. And just, yeah, because if it's not, then we need to have that discussion with the hiring committee about like, sure, in a budgetary crisis, it seems silly to ask them of that. But if they anticipate or if they happen to know of like a dire need or, those kinds of things, it's not for the hiring committees necessarily. It's everyone's purview to worry about our budget, right? But I feel like hiring committee, their focus and their discipline is on hiring, and so
And they have a big impact on the overall budget also, so I
Mhm.
mean, that makes sense, so we would be thinking about that proactively, right? But yeah, you're right, Regina, probably the biggest impact. on
But
the
you're
budget.
only talking about, just to be clear, we're only talking about staffing needs, we're not talking about any
Changes.
ways to save money. We're talking about,
yeah, the ways to save money is really more like the GC. We're the ones making those kinds of decisions. But if they had, we'll take opinions. That doesn't necessarily mean that we act on those opinions because it's ultimately the GC's opinion. But I definitely think that we are educated by their opinion, right? Thank you. All right, communications, IT yearbook, building and grounds, safety committee, building search committee. I guess I need to change that to Sanjay, right?
Yeah.
Right. And Ashley.
Yeah, and actually.
I have a question related to that, but I don't know where, since they're not here. And it's, maybe I already missed the opportunity because Kathleen already did the BOT report. But it's related to the building?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's,
I was just curious, in the BOT report, where we were talking about moving forward with, potential negotiations, lease negotiations. And I guess my question is, since some more information has surfaced regarding, information in the State Farm building, is that going to proceed regardless of that new information? Is there gonna be talk about that new information? Like, what is happening related to that new information?
That's a good question. It's all new to the BOT as well. So, and we haven't had a chance to meet and discuss it. I can tell you that the emails that have been going around and the comments that have been made thus far is nobody's upset by the revelations. I think we were all kind of hoping it was, I don't know, Hood College or somebody that bought the property, but I think the overall opinion is FMH is okay. That we have a good relationship with them, and they did literally kind of ask us to come in. So I think the real question is, in terms of making this work, is can we work out an affordable deal? And that's still to be seen. So,
Okay. Is it gonna matter the type of medical things that are occurring there?
Well, all we know is what was in the FNP article, and they mentioned in there a call center, potentially a hospice, potentially a clinic. And so the expectation from the school side of it and MMCI side of it is that the schools would be completely separate. So, we're sharing a building, but would that be any different than, for instance, if we had gone to Toll House where we were sharing with medical offices there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I
So-
agree. I just didn't know if there was some degree of,
Mhm.
I mean, it's different if it's a
Partner.
radiology than
I
if
think
it's a
that, I think
hospice.
an outpatient medical clinic is very different from a hospital, a hospice and service.
I
In
agree.
addition, and
Yeah.
an indwelling nursing care facility. I mean, just in terms of land use, outdoor space, where can you go, how happy you be.
It would depend on the
Be there
firewall
at
too,
night.
like it depend on just the physical arrangements of it, if you're at
There-
one end of the building versus the other end of the building, and things like that, right?
I mean, this is just my personal opinion, but I don't have any negative feelings about, for instance, a hospice versus an outpatient clinic. But I don't know, I imagine other people might have other opinions.
Well, that was kind of my question is
Yeah.
I think people may have had,
Yeah.
opinions about it, and so I just didn't know what so that's a BOT level conversation then, is that kind of what?
Well, I think that if members of the GC have concerns about it, I think we should certainly discuss it and then have our opinion and
Yeah.
forward it up to the BOT.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is really all the information we have right now is the FNP article. So, I've been talking to the Realtor and that's the information he's got at this point. So as more information becomes available, we'll tell more people and give you the information, but we just don't have it right now. And I think the real reality of this is, really is a numbers game. I mean, it depends on whether we can make this affordable for the schools, and that's really where the decision point is going to be. So those questions are just at the beginning. So the next step is, for instance, we're taking a general contractor in there to give us an opinion on what build-out would cost, because we don't know. And, we don't know how much tenant improvement allowance they're gonna give us. We don't know, I mean, we just don't know. So I think as that shapes up, then we'll have more ways to have productive conversations about it.
I think though, one part of having a productive conversation is to know what the concerns are so that you guys can ask more educated questions.
I agree, I absolutely agree. Yeah, if you have concerns or questions, I would dash off a quick email to Molly Spence. And let her know what those concerns are.
I was actually thinking that maybe we could discuss it as a GC.
Mhm.
Because then if we're discussing it via email as a GC, then Molly will see. Right, I know, I'm saying the concerns. Right. So what I'm saying is that if we're discussing it as a, like, I'm happy to discuss it here now too. I'm not trying to shut that discussion down from here. But it sounded like maybe you were a little tentative, or maybe you needed to get more information from people you're hearing concerns from. And so if that's the case, then I'd like to move it to an email discussion, which then we know Molly for sure would be viewing that discussion as it's happening. And then we could also reach out as representatives, we could be reaching out to members within our community and finding out like what the concerns are, asking the questions of our community members. And then that way, when the BOT is working on negotiating, maybe it's just a matter of, where the entrances are and that the entrances are separate to address concerns of like what the kids are going to be exposed to or potentially see or whatever it is, then like that can inform the discussions that you guys are having with.
And Mary, I think it'll,
We're a block away from a hospice now, so does that affect the students? in
Well,
some
our
way?
students they don't see, I don't, and it's what
That-
you just
okay.
said, it just depends on entry.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're not on the same,
Exposure.
I mean.
it would certainly help with our negotiations with the current landlord though, if there's even the realistic idea that we could have some other place to be, as we go into negotiations with this guy, it should rankle him a little bit that there are some options, because so far we've been playing chicken, and I think he has felt like we don't have any options. So even just the mere floating of this idea, I think, helps us in terms of our negotiations here a little bit.
Lots of options.
It could also serve as service
Good ones.
for our children.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too. It might be a nice opportunity for partnerships or educational opportunities. Certainly, there's certain realities that the kids get to a point where they're old enough to understand, and
There's actually a whole development of Montessori and dementia with people with dementia.
yeah, I can see that.
Research based.
Kids working with older people is age old, and that's a big thing for both. Yeah.
Not before,
Yeah.
but I'm not coexisting with them, but visiting,
Right.
you know.
Service projects, things like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And do we know what the new owners think about having a school on there? I mean, it's not just what we think about it, is that, I guess, so far they're gung ho for having, lots of people strangely don't like schools. I don't know why, but lots of people have issues with that. Lots of people who move into retirement villages do so because they don't want to be around other people. So is that really a good one? Are they gonna want us there?
I don't think this is the kind of situation where people are gonna be moving in necessarily, or.
That's just not a question I
So,
can answer,
yeah.
because
Yeah,
I don't
no,
have that
understand. That's
information.
it, yeah.
You know, again, when, a more productive conversation occurs, I'll let you guys know what they say. So,
Excellent, thank you.
Will you do that for us?
yeah,
You would do that for us?
So I guess in the meantime then, let's get a pulse from members of the community, see if it's a concern and what those concerns are. Because if the BOT is moving forward with it, then we want to make sure concerns are addressed.
And where was this article, just because I'm not from
Frederick News Post.
Project News Post?
I think, I thought I sent the link to
It's
everybody.
the esteem.
I'll make sure that it's.
Could you,
it's
3 days.
Kathleen, could you send the link to everyone to start the discussion?
Absolutely.
Great.
I didn't.
There's really not much of a description in there. It just says, hey, Frederick Health is buying this facility and here's some of the things they might do with it. So that's really all it says.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're gonna move into old business.
Just to let you know, we're 2 minutes ahead. I'm keeping time.
You are keeping
Oh, did you have something to add to your report that you already submitted?
Most of the stuff from my report was included on the agenda, but I did want to ask if you guys wanted to consider having another work session in November to kind of follow up on the last one, talk about the budget.
Sounds great.
We probably should, because we have some time things we have to think about.
Maybe based on what you guys have talked about so far, maybe we have specific committee chairs also make sure that they attend to help the discussion. The fundraising chair, I don't know. But think about it, let me know. We can set up another doodle poll.
Should we try to do for next week? Because the week after is the week before Thanksgiving and people might be a little harried. Or is next week busy? Or should we do a doodle poll?
Well, you gotta remember the parent education is that week.
Which week?
Next week.
Right, so I was thinking, so my thought was next
And
week.
it's also the drama production.
She was thinking next week.
Next
Mhm.
week.
I was trying to avoid the week after.
It's the
Gotcha.
week of Veterans Day.
That was preferred during the day.
Right,
Yeah, just.
I can do any night but Wednesday night.
could you, would you send a doodle poll, Marissa,
Okay.
for next week?
Okey-dokey.
Is there a time? So I think with doodle poll, if you don't pay for the premium, you have to have the same time and just different days.
Just mentioning, next week is the book fair all week long and it's the annual meeting also.
Yes, on the
Thursday,
14th.
So
Yep.
you don't want to overcommit for that week, I would think.
And the book fair that Friday night is the later event till 6, so. It's Thursday, Friday evening.
Marissa, was there something specific that you were wanting to communicate, or is it building specific?
No,
or is it
it's
broad?
more of just following up from our last discussion, making sure that we're going to do things one way or another. And so that's where if November's not good and you want to do December,
Let's do the first week of December, would that work for people? That's after Thanksgiving?
That the first week of December is a GC and a BOT meeting.
I would say no to that week.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, I'm gonna say no to any extra meetings in December.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie,
Right,
December is my big month of the year,
right.
Oh.
but you can always do it without me.
No,
If
so-
it works for if it works for 9 other people, don't let me hold
It
you
wouldn't be
back.
the same without you.
So
Plus, someone else would have to take it up.
let's do a doodle poll for the week of the 11th through the 15th, and except for obviously the 14th, and maybe include also the 18th.
hold on, say that again.
She went back to November.
Okay, we're
I
in
went back to
November.
November because
Uh-huh.
December, I like. that
Okay,
seems-
so the week of 11/11.
Yes,
Okay,
through the 18th. Minus the 14th.
So the 13th is the Board of Ed meeting, right? 13th is Board of Ed. Somebody got that?
Okay, 14th is the annual meeting.
14th annual
She
meeting.
said not to.
So I was just
14th,
omitting,
I'm sorry.
I was omitting the 14th.
That's what I was saying.
So doodle poll for
Okay.
those. Does that sound good?
do you want a 6:30, 7?
No 7, I think
I guess 6:30.
It's
Does
6:30.
6:30 sound good?
6:30 is better for you.
I know it's tight for some people, but is that okay or? Yes,
Okay.
6:30.
So
It's
I'll
awful.
either be later, I won't probably be
Yeah.
able to make it anyway, so don't work around me, because those are. That's all right.
And I think it's gonna be hard having an extra meeting and getting everybody to find a time that's gonna
Yeah,
work.
don't
So we're
worry
gonna
about
have to pick the date or time that works for the most people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and after, just to follow up, after our last work session, if we don't vote or make any, there's no decision making,
Mhm.
right? And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but there wasn't really decision making that came out of the last one that I am aware of.
No.
there was.
So, are
That's
we
what we're
just,
doing today.
oh, okay, so that is happening?
Yeah,
There was a request for a town hall, that's what I remember.
Yep.
Like the last.
And where, was there any progress on the town hall?
I sent an email out, I think really what we're going, I think that the feeling was to get past the annual meeting and
that rings a bell.
thank you.
I think we established that
Very
necessity,
late.
yeah.
No, I remember having that, but I just couldn't ever remember what the outcome.
I do remember something about wait till we get through the annual meeting.
So what was the town hall for? Sorry.
It was about notifying the, and I'm paraphrasing, so anybody correct me if this is not accurate. But basically to notify the community that of our budgetary situation. So given any reduction that would occur in the coming months, it would not be a surprise to the community.
And why would we not try to incorporate that messaging at an annual meeting? Where we have a lot of people there.
I think that was just.
What, were there minutes that were taken at that meeting? No, at the budget meeting?
Mm-mm.
So I just imagine, so I have been to a lot of annual meetings in the past. And long time ago, which may not be the best way to do it, but they would discuss financial stuff as part of the presentation when the GC and the BOT got up there to speak. So we could certainly.
I know that the treasurer is planning on giving a report and will be including five-year projections and other information that the community will definitely want to know. So
Okay, so is that a good time then for the GC to?
I don't, probably not, but again, you would need to speak to Molly Spence about that.
Yeah,
I
it sounded
think-
like they.
I think we
didn't
felt-
want the-
I think like we felt that the situation was such that maybe it deserved its own time as opposed to an add-on or, addendum type
And
of
I,
thing.
yeah,
Like-
particularly
I know.
within our own community.
Yeah, like, not the overall, but just our school, because it's kind of a separate issue.
All
I
right,
think we
That's
felt like,
true. The annual
I
meeting
think we felt
really-
like it deserved its own
The annual meeting is really MMCI and it really encompasses both schools.
I'm gonna talk to
So-
Molly.
I would
Let's
talk
just,
to
let's just do an action item for me to talk to Molly and discuss that in
What do you-
further detail, and then I'll follow up with you guys on,
You're gonna talk to her about wanting to discuss it there?
Yeah.
Because most of us don't want that. Are you gonna tell her you want that?
I'm not gonna tell her we want that, I'm gonna discuss it with her to see what her opinion is, and then I'm gonna come back to you guys with that.
And let her know what our feelings is about it, about
Mhm.
why we feel our way too.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel strongly that it needs to be a separate, it is a big issue and it's gonna affect the entire community. It's gonna affect our community more than it's gonna affect the other community. And so I feel like it really does deserve its own
Well,
time and.
our
event.
our budgetary constraints does affect CCM.
Yeah,
Yeah, but how that gets
But
done
we
affects
want,
us.
I
Right.
believe we wanted to, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have any notes here with me. We wanted to talk about it to our community because we wanted to sound the alarm
It's a
for-
rallying
for
cry.
for a rallying cry for
Yeah.
fundraising for us. Like, we're not just asking for money because we want.
this isn't just so your kid can be in a club, it's so
Yeah,
your
yeah.
kid can go to school, you
Yeah.
know? And we also
I
felt,
think we really wanted to show how bad it could get.
And
Right.
do we have a
Yeah,
statement
that's right.
So
prepared
then-
by next week? I mean, was there some closure we could say that the situation is heading this way, but I think there still were a lot of details out that.
That's
what-
where this
that's-
next work
That's
session was
to
for
really
us to
coalesce
kind of
that.
go to say,
To
we had
have
our
a statement.
brainstorming,
right,
Yeah.
now let's
we need to put some
kind of-
verbiage together.
create a plan.
Okay. So to me, from a strategic standpoint and timing, it seems as though that's something that would need to happen in January. And if that's the case, then that's gonna fall on Regina's shoulders
Sorry.
to organize. So from a strategic standpoint, having a town hall meeting would, from a timing perspective, need to happen in January. Because December is gonna be too crazy with the holidays.
But I think the prep work for it needs to be done before January. If
Sure.
we're gonna do it in January, then we really, because that last budget meeting was pretty intense.
I would say we would
You know.
also, if we're trying to rope fundraising into it, we need, if they're doing an annual fund in December, they should be screaming from the rooftops in December, not waiting until January.
Well, if we're gonna have to make serious budgeting decisions by February, isn't that correct?
Which is the
By the end of February.
the count, that's the end of, that's the county deadline, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So then I think we need to give the community ample time. We can't just say, here's our problem, give us money, and then turn around weeks later and we're gonna do what we're gonna do regardless of how much you give. I think
Right.
There has to be a period of time when they have to be able to step up and try to.
Which is, so that brings me back to me, it seems like the most prudent idea is to do this in conjunction with the annual meeting. Because it is a time where we have the largest audience possible to discuss these budgetary constraints that we are having.
When is the annual meeting?
November 14th,
Yeah, no, you need to talk to Molly about
that's where the action item comes into
that.
play. So, I mean, I don't wanna have to do it at the annual
Could it
meeting,
be
but then,
done
but
before,
then,
like the hour before the annual meeting?
Hey, MVMers,
That's-
we're talking budget.
that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
actually might
thinking.
I was
I just
thinking
don't think
middle
you
of the
can-
annual meeting.
I don't think you can
Yeah.
make it part of the annual
Okay.
meeting, but if you wanted to do something beforehand, that might work.
Marissa?
Well,
I'm sorry, Kevin,
No.
hang on, Marissa?
I'm sorry. Okay, and so one of the things that we talked about at the GC meeting was getting people informed about things. And as you go to look at Tara's write-up later in the agenda, you'll see where we're kind of trying to take things in terms of asking people to give money and time. And I sat down with Megan Sombat last week, last week, and pulled together some facts about our facility, about our volunteer hours, about losing the pre-K grant, some factual information that we will hopefully sprinkle into what you're going to review from Tara to hopefully increase everyone's giving in one way or another. So we've got things working.
yeah, because I think kind of what we, I don't know, the way I looked at it after the last meeting was in some ways this is not gonna be solved by simple fundraising. I mean, we're gonna have to go beyond that to kind of a plea to the community for help. I mean, I don't think we're gonna we're not gonna bake sale or book club our way out of this, is what it sounds like. And we're, and I'm not familiar enough with the charter how else we can do things, but, I think we at least need to let people know where we are. And it is significantly serious, like in terms of possible losses of personnel or services or things like that. So, I mean, I feel like if we want to kind of ring the bell at the annual meeting, that's great, but at some point we need to have a discussion before then to get on the same page in terms of our verbiage and in terms of like messaging, we really, because it's not a panic type of thing, but we want to be on the same page in terms of messaging as we talk to the community. But, we're not going to get out of this fundraising. We're really going to have to directly appeal to the parents of students here for financial help to kind of keep this ball rolling. And that needs to be nuanced a little bit amongst us. I mean, that has to be a pretty well laid out plan, I think.
I think to be fair to everyone, staff and community and families, it just has to be known that there are going to be tough conversations that are coming up at the end of February, and that we didn't want that to be a surprise.
Right.
And we have to do right by the people.
Before the end of February, those discussions. have to happen.
Right. People need to be aware of things. It's
So, which is, so then when we look at the fact that December is really challenging for people to even schedule a work session in December, being a hard month. I'm not even trying to single you out. I'm just saying, like, December's tough for me too. So if December's tough for a couple of us on the GC,
It's hard for all of us.
Yeah, I
Right.
wanted to do that.
then either we're having this this town hall in January.
Right.
Or we need to try and fast forward it before Thanksgiving.
But prior to the town hall, what we're saying is that we need to have a meeting amongst ourselves, the GC and the committee to.
Right.
So if we put the doodle poll out there for that, maybe next week, and if whoever can make it makes it, it's not, I don't think at this point we're gonna get 100%, no matter what we do.
Right. So
Just
it's
because
gonna have to
scheduling
be,
But
We
if
have to make progress. We can't wait for everybody to
Yeah,
be there
exactly.
to make
We
progress.
can't let perfect be the enemy of good. So good is as many of us as we can get, perfect is all of us. So let's try to get a meeting next week, and then that gets us the messaging and the verbiage for January, because December may be difficult. But at least then we need to spend that meeting really kind of solidly. Last meeting was kind of like a rift. We need to compose this next one. We really need to put some music down.
Well, we
Right.
need to talk about timelines.
Yeah.
When we're gonna repeal things and what we want that to look like.
And what are the possible?
What are we looking at?
What are we looking
Right.
at? What are the possible solutions to the problem we're in? If we don't make it this way, then this is what will happen, and this is what will happen, or this is what could happen. So that there's no surprises, because at that point, then if it happens, then we say, look, we rang the bell, and we tried to do what we could, but
Right.
this is where we have to go.
so then let's adjust the doodle poll date.
If we don't have this disclosure conversation at the meeting, then maybe, since we're all probably gonna be at the annual meeting, maybe earlier, that's when we can have our meeting. Cause we're all committed to that day anyway.
A meeting, not the initial meeting, though. I think it's November, you're right, it's
We're
November, yeah.
hoping, in fact,
To
So
have
we're-
something at that night.
yeah, so I was
Okay.
hoping that we would meet before
So
that.
what about the weekend? Anybody able for the weekend?
So I'm just gonna say, we should try and open up that doodle, or adjust those doodle poll dates that we asked Marissa to do. And I was thinking maybe Thursday of this week. Friday, school's closed, but if people are willing,
I could do a Saturday morning.
I could also
Like a
do,
Saturday night?
I mean, I can, if
I
it
can't
comes
do
to it, it comes,
Saturday
I hate
morning,
to do that, but.
Someone have an apartment in Frederick for rent?
You know what?
I'm just checking.
We do have a place you could stay if you needed it. I've offered it before to other people because of the weather, so we do have
so maybe, Marissa, the 7th through the 13th.
And maybe this is just semantics, but I just feel like this isn't the same thing as a typical budget meeting. I feel like there's, and if our hands are tied from making any actionable decisions at a work session, then maybe
it shouldn't be a work session?
We
It's just
don't,
almost like an emergency budget meeting.
Is
what
this a work, is this like an open work session meeting or is this like different?
no, this has to be different.
Right, so maybe, yeah,
So this is,
What is it? I don't know.
So
this
yeah,
is a budget meeting for the GC. Mhm. Yep. Mhm. It will be a closed meeting, Mary, correct?
I think it needs to be.
I just said it louder. The reason I repeated that, Mary, was because I wanted to make sure
I
it's
know,
loud.
I know, that's
Yeah.
what you-
Now, in terms of
Can I ask
talking
a
about
question
the
about that?
annual meeting,
Can I ask a question about that on behalf of the fundraising committee? I heard, fundraising chair being thrown around. Are you requesting the fundraising committee to be at this meeting?
I think it would be.
Not the committee.
No.
The work meeting, just so that I can,
The
No.
closed
Okay.
session meeting, I don't think they can be at that.
they
Okay.
can be if they're invited.
just to clarify.
Anybody you invite.
I don't think so. What do you guys think?
I say no as well. I don't think we're gonna be talking about.
Okay.
That's not, no,
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't think
think-
fundraising.
I think it's kind of, like I said, we're kind of,
Right,
fundraising's a different issue.
right.
This
Yeah,
is
I
a-
just wanted to clarify for our planning
Yeah,
purposes.
no, no,
Right.
thank you. It's not that because we so much appreciate everything and it's.
Oh yeah, no,
The
no,
fact
I'm
that-
not requesting to be invited. I just want to know if.
And the fact that I said that it's beyond fundraising doesn't mean that fundraising isn't crucial. I just think.
Oh no, I completely agree
it's
with
bigger
you
than
on
that.
that.
Fundraising's a different purpose. You know what I
Right.
mean, it's,
Right.
Ideally fundraising should be promoting the activities of the school, not the school. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
so, thank you.
So I just wanted to say in terms of if we're going to be able to have something before the annual meeting, we kind of have to know as soon as
Right.
possible because we have to get the information out to the community
Can we
with
do
enough time for
Can
them
we do
to
this
know.
now or is this not possible to do now? Calendar this. Do we need a doodle poll or can we just amongst us when we're all here in the room?
I think it's a,
I think it's easier in a doodle poll
Okay. no,
because we'll
I'll-
go back and forth with, well, I can't do this date, but can you do this date? I think it's just easier to see what everybody can agree to. That's my opinion.
I can't agree to anything until I confirm with my husband
I can
or
believe my
find a
husband.
sitter or something.
Her husband, your refrigerator. I get it.
That's why I write everything.
Can I say
okay,
back to
so,
the-
so
okay.
I, sorry, I just want to address what Regina just said, which was, if we are, I think we do need, I agree, I think we do need to decide whether we're going to plan to have something in advance of the annual meeting, or not now. We have to make that decision now so that we can give the community enough time to know that we are going to have that meeting in advance of the annual meeting.
I think as long as we can all agree that we are going to have this other meeting and we will be able to hash out these details, then I think we
Yes,
should
I would agree.
reasonably be able to commit to that.
Okay,
As long as everyone is okay with having the meeting in advance of the annual meeting instead of having it at a later date.
can I get a temperature read real quick?
You mean like the meetings at 7 have this community meeting for us at 6?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
really a discrete time period, which might also be good, just to say, here it is.
Right,
We gotta move out of the room now.
right, yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
And it might
Other
get
people
more people
come.
to the annual meeting.
Are you
too.
confused?
Yeah, man. What are you? How
So
many
we're-
meetings
so
are you
what we're
having
saying-
and where, when?
So we're gonna meet with you
Okay.
and we're gonna have
And
a
that's the
budget
doodle
meeting.
poll.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
the doodle
Okay.
poll.
Next week.
And
To
then,
figure out what we're
That's
gonna
next week.
say.
That's
Okay.
next week.
so
Right.
that will help us determine the messaging surrounding the decisions that are going to end up being made.
And we can meet again
Okay.
before the annual meeting to kind of polish that up and.
No.
No,
Yeah,
that's
deliver
just
that,
the
deliver that,
message.
okay, deliver that, okay.
Yep.
Big polish.
Yep,
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot for
delivery.
one meeting.
Well, the annual
Yes.
meeting is next week, right?
yep. So I'm going to, so the action item for me is that I'm gonna talk to Molly about this and make sure it makes sense with the BOT.
We're in a situation too.
And then, because then Molly, also to extend an invitation to Molly, so with the doodle poll, if you could include Molly as well. And it implied is Kathleen. And then from there, we'll know for sure.
That's the problem with doodle polls though. Do we wanna make, I mean, when you count, I almost would like to just kind of throw some dates that we know are absolutely terrible, cause I mean, would it be more important to have BOT members if their votes count as much on the doodle as like if she can't come? I think the GC
wanna
members
have it
should be there
weighted.
for I want it to
Right,
be weighted
right, of
for
course.
GC members, and
Right.
that doesn't happen on Doodle. So maybe we could get some sense of like the terrible, I know you can't, but this is actually, never mind.
But we need her.
That's right, so never mind.
Really
Just
roll
remember
decide.
what she said.
I can talk to your husband for you.
All right, so I'm
So never
gonna
mind.
reach out to Molly. We're gonna plan to meet this. I'll reach out to Molly tomorrow morning, first thing. And then from there, we will, if Molly's on board with doing a second meeting in advance of the annual meeting, then we will get some communications out. No, communications out to the community.
Got it.
Right, so could you add that to that same action item? Yeah.
This is actually the previous topic, but I just got a text from our fabulous BOT Assistant Treasurer, Tara Dunsmore. This is about the film club, and she said, since the BOT has already approved Root Branch, I think the GC just needs to vote that they want to hold another session for spring. Then I can facilitate the contract as the BOT rep. And I said, yeah, I agree with that, but we need to amend the contract, the current contract, to cover the club's activities to film for the fundraising events.
Or have a
Okay.
second contract.
So, and then she says, just FYI, the money should go into the MVM school fund. I talked to Amy O about it, and we came up with this wording. Proceeds to benefit the MMCI MVM Film Club. In the event the film club disbands or is no longer in need of these funds, they will be transferred to the MVM General Fund. This just covers any eventuality that the film club is no longer active and still has money in the account.
That makes sense.
Can you forward that verbiage to me?
I will.
Thank you.
Okay.
You don't wanna type all that?
Well, I didn't know it was gonna get that detailed.
Well, we got stuck with all that strings money, couldn't do anything with.
Yeah.
Right,
So do we want to do a GC vote now to just say we want to continue the film club activities through next spring?
well, I think that the form needs to get filled out. I think we should
You
handle
want to do
this.
the form first and then?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yep, otherwise,
No problem.
that becomes a slippery slope
Sure, I got you.
of not getting paperwork done appropriately. Okay, yep.
Sorry.
Now we're on time for old business at 7:50. All right, so review action items from the previous meeting, Regina.
Everybody's favorite part. Okay, Ellie, did you follow up with Meg Guzman regarding the need for more mulch in the courtyard?
Yes, I sent an email. I haven't heard back yet.
Okay. Ellie, did you follow up with Mark Prince on when we'll be told the cohort of schools at FCPS will be comparing MDM to for the annual report?
Yes, I got the answer to that, which is that Amy has access to that. And I think Amy and Mark, I don't want to speak for you, but you guys already discussed that, so you know who they are now.
Did you get clarification from Megan Sombat on what she is requesting from the GC per her communications committee report in October?
Yes, but the information fell out of my brain, so I will email you guys back. Sorry. I talked to her like right after the last GC meeting.
Yeah, I put fell
So
out
is
of brain.
put
It's
information
the
back in your
official.
brain, is that action item?
Did you email the committee chairs asking them to create a wish list of items they need?
No, I did not.
Did you reach out to members outside of the GC and the wider community to notify them of the GC meeting start time change of 6:30?
I did go around chatting with people.
Okay, Amy, did you reach out to Marilyn Horan at CCM asking how she ensures that CCM is meeting AMS requirements?
I did.
Can you share?
Or do you want to, did it
Or
work?
can you email it to
Yeah.
us
It's
or
in my
something?
email.
Okay.
So yes, I can forward that.
And should I read what was completed? Out loud? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
It's up to you.
5 minutes over? Okay, that's fine then. It'll be in the minutes.
All right. Radon abatement. Mary, do we have any updates on that?
Nothing other than he's scheduled to come on the 7th, I think I forwarded, and the 8th, I think I forwarded those emails to you, Amy, and to Jen Leader Anderson, because the book fair deliveries are coming on the 8th, but that's not going to be a problem. He seems to want an early start on the 7th. Did you see that in his email?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, yeah, so right there, it's getting done.
Awesome, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
I motion to approve moving the restricted $36,293.86 2020 vision funds from the MMCI MVM School Fund to the MMCI MVM Facility Savings. This move would mean that the funds would gain interest. Can I get a second?
I second that.
Great, thanks, Amanda. So it's open for discussion. Does anybody have anything they want to say?
Is this what Marissa talked about?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's Marissa approved.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this.
It counts a
at the
lot,
work
Marissa.
session,
Yes.
too.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so all in favor? Great. Motion passed. All right, motion to approve moving funds accumulating in the MMCI MVM School Fund to the MVM Facility Savings. This move would mean funds would gain interest. Can I get a second?
Second.
Excellent. Thanks, Tori.
Well, how much funds?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Fun, that sounds like everything.
They're just accumulating ones.
It's the accumulating ones.
Where did this come
Marissa's report. Anytime someone pings something in a report, then I'm just gonna put it out there. So then now that it has a second, it's
So-
up for discussion.
On the second page, I had talked about the 2020
Sure.
vision campaign and then how, when we were looking at the budget for this year's MVM school fund, we had over $30,000 carrying over from last year. And so we didn't spend it. Is that something that we want to consider moving to facility savings? Because this year we still get our standard $9,000 from the BOT, and we have all of our fundraising going into this account. We also have, or I think in the next month's report, you'll see the last 2 years, there was a reconciliation done with our fee that gets paid to the BOT to handle things like our annual audit, the bookkeeper's salary, things of that nature. They kind of looked at how much they had received, how much things cost, and from the net of that for 2 years, they're giving us back $10,000 or $10,337.69. So that's more money that's coming back into our pocket. We can put that into facility savings if you would like to. All of these amounts are listed on page 2 of my memo.
Is this the 9,496?
The 9,496. So on the fund balance report that I give you guys every month, I've been trying to track what I believe to be the 2020 vision restricted. Well, I had been tracking it to be around $45,000, and the auditors came back and said, no, only 36,000 is truly restricted. And so that's just a variance that is more money that you could put into the facility savings if you would like to. Otherwise, it all just sits in the checking account.
Right.
That makes sense.
So then the discussion is, I'm sorry, Kevin.
It sounds like that makes sense, what you're saying, to put that in that account. I mean, it'll at least give us some interest, and does it make it any more or less accessible to us or safe for us?
The only thing I would do is pause. We haven't talked about the MVM school fund budget. So unless there's anything drastically changing from what I had originally provided you, then I would say you should be safe to move these funds over.
Would we be best to wait until after our meeting to discuss that, or will that not impact it at all?
Well, these are funds that you can designate to move to facility savings, and you can, well, once you move it to facility savings, you can vote to approve to spend those funds, but the BOT also has to have an approval. You can keep them in the checking account, but you don't gain interest on the checking account.
How much interest do you get if you transfer?
Last year, for almost $300,000, we had $500 of interest.
So we committed to always being a building fund unless the BOT signs off on it too for 500.
Well, once the money goes into facility savings, it's facility savings.
It's group decision.
So the cost of our autonomy is $500.
Yes.
Well, another way to
Right.
think about this though is you, it can be used for any facilities expenses. So for instance, if we're here next year and we have rent coming up, you could use it to pay the rent with. So it's not as if you couldn't take those funds out. It's just when you spend them, it has to be something that's facilities related. So I just want to.
Like radon abatement or
Or mulch.
But
or
not,
mulch.
but not.
Right,
Yeah.
or something, not Navians.
It was just on the list, so it's in my head.
Or compass,
For-
we're sitting here committing.
or
We're
trainings.
gonna turn around and say,
And
Or
we don't
staff-
have to, if we
or
decide,
staff
we don't have to
trainings.
move all of the money.
"Yeah, we can't
No, you can do what it's.
And how much
Whatever you
money are
do.
we talking about? Is there a fixed
In
amount? Is it just,
okay, hold on.
or are
give me
we
a second.
talking just a rolling?
Is it the
How
difference
much I
between
had
that
in my
45
thing
and the
was.
36?
Which is 9,000.
But the funds accumulating, this is an ongoing
337.
commitment.
Okay, so in my memo, I have a total of $49,833.69.
So $49,000 is gonna become dedicated to building related expenses
Yes.
with this vote.
She just said.
Well, no, actually, I can amend this to an amount that we approve to do, and if we can decide to keep some in the checking
So
account.
on a 49, if $300,000 returned $500 in interest, it stands to reason then that 49,000 is gonna be a very nominal amount of interest.
And we
Right.
just
So the incentive
did,
there is not interest.
and we
No.
just sent $36,000 to this fund.
Right,
It's not like we're not funding the fund.
exactly.
I feel like we should maybe
So we could.
keep our autonomy and the liquidity of it because we have some big decisions coming up.
Can I just make a suggestion that, could we talk about this at the meeting that we're gonna have next week?
Not if
So
we
that-
vote now.
Sure, you can, you don't have
We
to,
don't have to vote now,
Right.
or we can
Well,
vote, we can
I'm
kill
just
the
saying,
motion.
I think we would have a better handle of whatever else we're talking about at that meeting, and then we can
Right.
decide where we wanna put this.
That's what we're
So,
talking.
yeah, I don't see why we need to talk about this right now.
I agree.
We can stay late
Okay.
tonight or we can stay late then. Yeah.
That's why we're talking about it. Decide not to talk
I
about it.
don't care about that, I just wanna know about everything else.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good
before we make
suggestion.
about-
We'll have more light shed on the subject, is what you're saying. I would agree with that.
Can we motion? can we
There's no
motion to
deadline.
table? Motion? Oh, all right.
Motion to table.
okay?
Second? Does that need a
Thank you,
second?
Mary Romanich.
Second.
All in favor? Great.
Look for it in next month's memo.
Right.
Look forward to
You're gonna
that.
have to wear something sparkly and dance at this next meeting, because you're gonna be on stage, you know that, right?
To bring it back up. Next GC meeting.
I'll bring it back.
I just wanna make sure
To
I have it
add
on
it
the
to the
agenda.
agenda.
Yeah, that's what I should have said. I stopped drinking coffee 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I tried that.
Yeah. I'm not faring very well.
I'm drinking coffee too.
That begs the question why. Yeah, exactly.
And it's weird.
Okay.
Who seconded the table?
Mary,
Mary,
It's me.
second. Oh, that's right.
Just wanted to kill something.
great. So I have on there the MVM school fund
It was
budget.
similar to the second.
I'll wait for everyone's fingers to catch up. Regina's like, got it. I'm waiting for Marissa.
Okay. Okay, so right now, okay, here's what questions I got for you. At the work session, we talked about, is it correct for me to take the Montessori parent education $500 that was approved at one point out of the budget? Because that was talked about at the work session, and that's still in this budget that you're looking at. So am I taking that out? Because otherwise, I don't know what other changes you guys would want to make. And I'm
That was
open.
a discussion that Nancy and I had about putting in a parent education for last year without having any sort of planning time to do that. And as far as I know, I suggested that, and as far as I know, it was never done. So I would say that it needs to come out.
I think it just came up again in July, but it was, that was the impetus of it, but we talked about it, before.
And now that
there
we've
was-
developed our
yeah.
own, we don't need to pay for it. So
Okay.
people can pay us for ours now.
Here's a single one.
Okay, so in thinking about the possibility of transitioning over to a Montessori middle school, I think it might be wise to keep that there, because there might be some PD around that.
Okay,
Not PD, but sorry,
Parent
parent.
education.
okay.
Right.
So still keep it in the budget, but not necessarily have it restricted to whatever it
Well, it would
originally.
still be parent ed, it would still be parent ed.
Okay, okay.
This was a specific program through.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be for that specific program.
Right.
It's still just $500 in the budget
For
for
parent ed.
parent ed. Okay. What are we going to do with the technology? Because we had moved all of our licensing technology, the IXL Math, Raz Kids Reading A to Z, from SAF and start charging those costs against the MBM school fund, because that's where all of our fundraising has been going. I have in the budget that you have $2,500 for IXL Math, $1,800 for Raz Kids, and then there was $500 for Dreambox, which I don't think is something that ever happened last year.
I don't think it happened.
Yeah.
No, we used Dreambox last year.
Oh, you did?
You did?
Oh, okay.
Special education did.
Oh, that's right.
Okay,
I forgot, right.
that's why I never saw the cost come through. Okay. So what are those a reasonable amounts for this year? Should I increase them?
I think that the math, the IXL math, came in at 24. I'll have to double check that for you.
Okay.
And then Raz Kids, I don't know what the number on that is, but I know they're using it. I think that doesn't expire for a little bit of time. I think that's why it's not on our radar yet.
Okay.
And then I do know that special ed plans on continuing with the Dreambox.
Okay.
Right, so I was just looking, I was trying to find it up here.
So-
Fiscal year 20, so looking at IXL. This is Marissa's email that I'm looking at, basically. So fiscal year 20, 2,500 was budgeted for IXL, but there was a quote that she got for 3825.
Yeah, and we backed that because that included ELA.
Right,
And we dropped ELA because we're using No Red Ink, right, Monica? I think it's No Red Ink, and that comes free,
Okay.
and it's recommended by FCPS.
Okay.
So that's why we went back to the original math.
Okay,
just,
cool.
Just math.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So then I'm good with the 2,500. That
Yes.
should be good. Okay. Okay. So I pulled Dreambox out because from what I can tell, and especially if you're saying that special ed used it, then that's a special ed cost, not ours.
So
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I'll have to double check on that.
Yes, can
so
you, because I
action item for,
couldn't see where it ever got charged to any of our books. But
that
if it
makes
was
me worry that it
charged,
will.
well,
but
if
we're
it was
not
charged
expecting
under a
it.
credit card, it might just be there. I just can't tell because the description isn't detailed enough.
Got it.
Okay, so I'll leave that in there, and if we use it, we use it. Otherwise, we're good.
but I think we're good for, it's not expired yet. And we'll get the final cost for IXL.
Okay. So then any other changes?
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Just Montessori Compass in there, sorry.
Montessori Compass goes through the PPA.
Oh, okay.
I just want to clarify, because I thought I heard the words $500 teacher education and transitioning the middle school to Montessori. And then I didn't, is that something we were talking about?
No.
Okay,
There
I just
was-
wanted to understand if that was,
There,
what were we saying?
you all voted to approve through Montessori.org, a parent education type thing. And through time and things changing, decided not to purchase that, but we're still going to leave $500 in the budget because as middle school gets going and we look at transitioning, we might want to use some tools from that same website to help with our middle schoolers transitioning.
Oh, when
and
we were
things.
talking about the transition, we talked about that last week. About incorporating, okay. We talked about that before, right?
I feel like that, yeah.
So it's training. Okay. I was just wondering, I thought I was missing something bigger than
No.
what I heard.
You might be, but that wasn't it.
That wasn't it.
That was it, Mary.
Okay.
That's a weird place
So
to
any other
discuss that.
changes, comments?
No,
Okay.
not for me. Anybody?
Well, this says we're voting.
So what you
Yep.
can do is vote upon the budget that I had sent with the changes that we just discussed.
Mhm.
And tomorrow morning, I'll send you an updated budget to reflect those changes like we did last time with the SAF.
But we still need to find out about Dreambox, right?
Yes, but that's where I've got it in there. So
Better to have it in there and not need it.
yes.
Got it. Okay. Do you guys feel comfortable with that?
What changes did we just?
So the change,
We left the 500, we left the.
yeah,
technology
actually, we
funds.
don't have, didn't make any
Yeah.
changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did a lot of
Did I
pluses and
miss
minuses in my file as we were talking.
Right, yeah.
It felt like I was doing things.
So then you
Right.
don't need a vote, if you didn't change anything, you don't need.
Well,
No,
you
we have
still-
to vote to approve it.
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're voting to approve it.
for this year, okay.
We were just making sure there weren't any changes before we vote to approve it.
Okay,
And if the answer is no changes.
silly me, I thought you only voted on changes.
All right, so I motion to approve the MVM school fund budget as presented by Marissa Carter
Berube.
Berube. I'm sorry.
I know it's my maiden name. It's okay. Sorry.
It pops up that way.
I haven't
I'm-
given it
on
up.
either on my phone or email. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Marissa Berube, budget chair. Can I get a second?
Second,
Oh, they're dueling.
Second.
dueling seconds.
Yeah, we'll let the voter.
Discuss it. All in favor? Great. All right, moving on to the AMS membership. Kathleen?
Okay, I'm gonna make this really fast. We talked about this at the last meeting. And I think overall there was a positive feeling about renewing our AMS membership. Their program has changed so that now we would be doing the AMS Pathways to Continuous Improvement. That is a mentored, guided program through AMS where they work with the schools to institute best practices for Montessori schools as determined by American Montessori Society. And as you move along this pathway, once you reach, it's 10 steps. When you get to the 10th step, that's full accreditation. Once you are at step 5, you get this nice suitable for framing plaque, that says that you are on the Montessori path to continuous improvement, step 5, step 6, step whatever you are. So I think there are a number of things that we're already doing according to their what they would like us to do, and so it's just a matter of renewing the program and completing the requirements for the pathway. So anyway, the cost, we would need to approve up to $799. That would be the bill for this year. Would be a recurring annual expense to stay in AMS. I think everybody agrees that that's worthwhile. We can talk to them and see if we can get that price adjusted downward a little bit. I don't know, but I think approving the bill that they sent us is actually for $799. So that's what I would suggest, that you vote to approve. Anyway,
Is this a
That's
new
it.
bill or is this the same one
this
that
is
we
the
looked
same
at
one, this is the
last,
same one that we looked at
month.
last month.
which was from last year?
Yes.
That's-
Well,
I
it
was
started
curious.
in July.
Okay.
So the membership runs July to July, so we're already, part of the way through the year.
And
It also
was it prorated or
includes- No, I
No?
don't
Okay.
believe it'll be prorated,
Okay.
but I can check with them on that, that's a good question. And it also includes, two webinars for up to 20 participants. So for professional development, and that's worth about $500. So, just so you're getting some value for your membership.
There's some other
cost.
discounts as I recall. too,
Yeah,
but there's some-
you get discounts for conferences and other professional development. So I think since the staff is interested in doing more Montessori PD, this would be a good way to accomplish some of that. So, Amy, did you want to add anything else?
I don't. I'm strongly for the affiliation with AMS and the accreditation.
I think a Montessori school kind of makes sense
Right.
to be accredited by
exactly.
Montessori
What that
Society.
M
right?
stands for.
Right,
Right,
yeah.
right, exactly. So-
That is a long process, just so you guys know,
Yeah,
and it's expensive too, so we're gonna need to start putting some money aside to, because you bring people here from other, I've been on an accreditation team before. So,
You
that's
pay
way
for your
down.
accreditation kind of thing, is that?
No, they pay for you to stay in the state that it is, or in the town, they pay for your time while you're there. And there's a team of people that come in, but that's down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple
Well, I know
years.
that, like I said, they have changed the requirements quite a bit. So they're not doing what they used to do, they're doing now this continuous
Oh, gotcha.
path to improvement. And a lot of it is online based
Okay.
and done by phone, and so I don't know that they
Well, that
do
makes sense,
the
because they had
intensity
to
of the
pay
site
a lot of
visits
people
that they
to
did
stay
before.
and, yeah, meals
So-
and.
So anyway, so can I make a motion? I motion that we approve up to $799 for the 2019 annual AMS membership.
Second.
Do we need to say funds to be drawn from?
That's the PPA,
Okay,
class 2.
Mhm.
Count 72013. Contracted professional tech services. Now that's got a $500 budget. You can wait to see if other accounts within that class have surplus to cover the $299 that you're over, or you can move funds from the contracted maintenance repairs accounts to,
So,
Yeah.
so I'll second the motion.
Mhm.
And then, I guess, I think that, I just want to say that I feel like this is a not an annual commitment, but rather a long-term commitment. And so I think that, I feel like the motion is really short-term. And I think that maybe we need to have another motion where the GC is deciding that like this is
We're
the,
committed to this.
that we're committed to this for the long term. And that this is something that we need to make sure that we're budgeting for on a year-to-year basis. Because we're committed to this for the long haul.
Right.
Because it's crazy to me, like, and like, I can't believe I didn't know this before, like, have we been doing this all the time?
we've been an AMS initiate school, so we've had a tier of membership in AMS. but it hasn't been one that leads to accreditation.
Right. So it seems crazy to me that we've been here 17 years and not
And we're not
even
accredited.
started getting to the process of doing the accreditation. So I don't know. So I think that while I appreciate your motion, Kathleen, I feel like it's respectfully short-sighted and that maybe we need to have a discussion surrounding whether this is like the direction the GC wants to take.
So do you
And-
want me to withdraw the motion and we'll do another discussion, or do you wanna have this discussion at a future date? And
No, I
we'll
think-
do another motion at that time.
We can have a
I think-
discussion
I think
now
we do.
And then amend the motion.
and then have another motion where we're actually saying like, this is our long-term commitment. We're committed to doing this and seeing this through. That's a different,
Because
It's a
we
different
expect this
motion.
to be the same price every year. I mean, in general, this is gonna be this is a revolving
Reoccurring
membership. This isn't like a
expense.
2-year.
it's
I
like
actually
Compass.
would
We pay
expect
for
it-
Compass every
To
year.
be honest, to be perfectly fair, I would expect it to be more expensive
To go up
next year.
But not exponentially. There may be like a
No,
COLA
no,
type of thing,
but
but it's not,
we
it
got a lot of
shouldn't be.
discounts this year. I think
Yeah.
it should be incorporated. I don't know how much to
They
incorporate.
gave
I
us
think
a
we got
$500
discount.
Get a lot of
discount.
discounts.
I think we got a $500 discount because
Right.
we're under the umbrella with CCM.
Right,
One of
so,
us is a satellite school, one of us is.
That's right, yeah.
right, so maybe,
Who is
Thank
the
you, Monica.
satellite?
Sorry.
It's so to piggyback off of what you're saying about understanding the direction and the commitment, I think it would also only be reasonable and smart for us to be aware of what the steps are that we will be needing to take towards accreditation, just so everyone is equally informed about that, because I know for me personally, I have no idea what that looks like. So if we're talking about what it looks like, this is our long range goal, we wanna know what it looks like from a budgetary standpoint. Well, let's also look at the types of things that we're gonna be aiming towards, for the accreditation. I mean, doesn't that make sense?
is that, where did you find that? And to answer that, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what would help me is, I guess it's probably listed, right? AMS
This
certificate,
was, yeah,
accreditation.
This was from their renewal package that they sent to Nancy over the summer. And all of this information is on their website. So you can go to the ams.org website and click on Pathways to Continuous Improvement, and they will explain everything to you.
And honestly, like, for me, it feels so cut and dry. Like, if we're a Montessori school and are committed to being accredited, which I think is important, then it, like, knowing what the steps are involved, like, what other agency would we certify? I mean, really, it's a matter of get accredited through. I guess AMI or AMS, are those the only two players in the field?
AMI, you would need to have AMI certified Montessori teachers, which right now, I believe we only have one.
Right.
American Mathematical Society. I don't say we're aiming for them.
I ain't gonna
I'll
make
find
that.
it.
So
I have it, do you want me to send it?
I can figure it out, but
I just feel like it
I
would
would
be
like
different
if
for
you-
us
I
to
would like
know,
if
as
the
a
whole
governing
GC,
board.
because I'm trying to find it right now, but if we could all be looking at the
I
same
can send it right
information
to
would be
you right
nice.
oh, yeah,
Thank you.
So I gave you the wrong website. I'm
Ashley
sorry.
says the
No,
Pathways
it's-
handbook is on the AMS website, is that what you're doing?
American
Marissa.
Montessori Society. That's what it
Yes,
stands for,
American
right?
Montessori Society.
Yes, I would like you to look at whatever it takes to become accredited, because as you guys are talking about people needing certifications,
AMSHQ.
you all have provided training and funds to
Right.
help people get certified,
Mhm.
and that's more than the $799 annually that we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So before you really commit to getting yourselves accredited, I really think you should make sure you've got all your facts.
That's exactly what I would.
Well, then, do you all need some time to do additional research, and we should do this by eVet then? Or do you wanna continue the discussion now?
I think that you would be, in my opinion, because
So we'll table the motion.
Okay,
So I motion to table Kathleen's motion.
I second that.
Thanks, Kathleen. All in favor? Great. Okay.
Thank you for all.
Discussion of Naviance. I just want to make sure, so you explained it. Does anybody have questions for Amy from her discussion about Naviance earlier?
I think that's a great example of something that we wouldn't necessarily utilize as fully, that is, those the kind of things, especially from the budget, that we really have to look at too, so. that
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the utilization.
Well, if you don't use it to get people counseled for high school anyway, and you've been getting them transition to high school successfully without it.
And the high school pretty much, at least for my kids, once they get to high school, that's when they utilized it. I mean, you know, I think it's more fitted for the high schools in terms, these kids aren't applying to colleges or doing things like that. And that's the common core element of it and things. So it just makes sense. If we don't need to spend the money on it, I don't think we should, so.
Okay.
I mean, that makes sense, I think.
Anybody else? Okay, great. All right, so moving on to the last one in old business, and then we're gonna pause and take a restroom break. Discussion, exploring the possibility of joint campus with CCM and other opportunities. So, I added in there other opportunities because, there is a letter being drafted right now to being sent up about requesting program expansion for our school. And I wanted to talk about it and see if you guys have any questions about it. It is not something that is a decision that's being made because we don't even know if it's an option. And so it's seeing what opportunities are out there with exploring those any opportunities for program expansion with FCPS and the Board of Ed and whether or not they would approve it. And it is a program expansion discussion that we have had multiple times over the years, specifically when we were talking about potentially the Lincoln A property. So that request is being sent back up to the Board of Education because right now they're working on their budgets for next year. And so if they're going to approve it, then it would be something we'd have to go back to the community and get the community to vote and approve a program expansion. So does anybody have any questions about that? Because I want to make sure that people aren't like surprised that we're doing that or thinking that we're making decisions that we're not really making. We're just exploring opportunities for us to make decisions later on, if that opportunity is a thing.
Can I talk a little bit about it?
Sure.
This program expansion request is exactly the same program expansion request that was made in 2018 with our charter renewal application. So we renewed our charter for 10 years at that time. Fabulous. And one of the requests we made at the time the charter was renewed was to grant the exact program expansion we're talking about now. However, what the Board of Education said at the time, they didn't want to discuss it at that time because we had told them this would be connected to having a larger facility. And they basically said, well, come back to us when you know what your facility solution is, and then we'll discuss it. So the whole idea of putting the letter back in now, first of all, is a timeline issue because anything that affects the FCPS budget has to be in their pipeline to be considered before, in this case, was November 1st. So the letter actually has already gone in. But all it does is basically act as a placeholder for us. So it gives us the opportunity to have this ability to do a program expansion potentially. Doesn't mean that the Board of Ed would approve it, doesn't mean that we would vote to continue with it, but it had to be sent in according to their timeline. Otherwise, the opportunity would not exist.
Even if the Board of Ed did approve it, that doesn't necessarily mean that the community has approved it.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be something that we would be able to do without having a town hall and a charter amendment and all of those other things. So it's just a matter of expanding opportunities.
So really, it was a way of resubmitting the same request so that FCPS's budget people can look at the ramifications of that increase on the FCPS budget. So that's really all that's happening at this point. But that does leave that avenue of opportunity available for us if should we choose to exercise that in the future. So that's where that is coming from.
Sorry. Okay, so everything that you just talked about was about expansion. And in some of our stuff that we had submitted, we had 5 kids, like for the next year. Is that 5 kids part of that expansion, or is that cut off and we're going with expanding the number of students if we get the new space?
Okay. This
Great
would all be conditioned upon having an appropriate space to do this in, okay? We did not put in the request for the 5 students because it was felt that last year they were very confused about why we asked for this, and our argument really wasn't strong enough that we felt like we could go back for the 5 students.
Okay.
That was 2 years
But
ago.
what we did,
That was 2 years ago.
it was last year.
No, it was
It
at
was
the,
last year.
no,
It was
last year was the annual report,
Mhm.
and we did it at the charter renewal.
No, and then we went back the next year and asked for the 5 students.
And they pushed us off
Yeah.
until the summer, and then they said,
Right.
Yeah.
And then they delayed it till the summer and so it was last year. Anyway, so we decided not to resubmit that request, but went back to the 2 years ago request.
Okay.
Because that gives us the opportunity to actually do a program expansion, which would mean adding an additional primary class, possibly even 2 primary classes at some point. And then going to the 10-10-10 classroom model for all of the rest of the classrooms. And so that would give us significantly more PPA students. It would be rolled out over a long period of time. It would take 4 to 5 years to make this change. And we, being optimistic, said, well, let's assume we're gonna get all the facilities things taken care of and we'll be in a new facility next fall. So give us, BOE, please give us the opportunity to add that first primary class next fall. So that's what we're asking them to do. It may be overly optimistic. We may not be in a new facility next fall. If that's the case, none of this is gonna happen. And all of the other things I just said a few minutes ago. So that's where we are. Yes.
Okay, so, if you are adding a primary classroom
Mhm.
Yes.
as your first classroom, regardless of,
It would shift
This-
the matriculation patterns
Yes.
if we had another primary. So that we would expand in the higher levels
Yeah.
as well.
okay,
It's a
so you're not
slow
getting
growth.
just 15 students, you would
It's
be
a
getting
yes.
more?
It's a slow growth model.
Okay,
We would also be adding some students that we don't get compensated for
okay,
because we need a full classroom. But so it pretty much would be a break-even proposition for
Okay,
adding the primary
okay.
class.
no, I got nervous because if
Right.
we're talking just primary and 15 students, our primary classrooms don't make us money, they actually cost us money.
Right.
Right.
So we need the other students to come
Yes.
in,
But
okay.
then what happens is then it kind of populates up.
Mhm.
So those students then instead of having 30 kindergartners moving forward, you have more than that moving forward. And so then they start populating up in the classrooms. So,
Okay.
so yeah, so that's the whole slow growth.
Yep.
Idea behind it.
So this doesn't cost us anything?
No.
Okay,
To
so
make
we're-
the request.
We're just being optimistic, because I mean, the chances of, realistically, the chances of us being in a facility in the fall that would accommodate this is,
I'm working on it really hard.
all right.
Well, but there are also several
Well, let's do
steps
it then.
though.
Then if
Yeah,
it-
but there's several steps, and
Yeah.
the letter has already gone in because we had a deadline we had to meet, so that letter has gone in.
Okay.
But that doesn't obligate us to do anything, so,
This is kind of
it
a
just-
CYA thing.
yeah,
Okay,
it just gives us the opportunity to be able to have that conversation, so.
Great. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Nope. Okay, great. So we're gonna take a break. will you see if there's a way to pause that? Because I think there might be.
Throw
We're gonna
t-
take a restroom break and be back in
Throw a t-shirt over it or something.
in 7 minutes.
7 minutes.